All right, so now this is my opportunity to elaborate or to explore some issues brought up on Chapter 2 and perhaps to repeat or reiterate some of the themes in the chapter that I think are most important. I suspect that this will be a little bit briefer than Chapter 1's sort of lecture or addendum to the chapter, and I have some materials around me on my desk as I'm going through this, so I'll be sort of going back and forth through incorporating some of that material to the textbook. But I think to begin with, I think it's important to explore, again, to review that this is the organization of the chapter. These are the 5 key sections within this particular chapter that are explored, and certainly there are some issues, perhaps not within every section, that I want to elaborate on, but certainly a few. So I think to begin with, a couple of things. It's not really mentioned too much in the book, but that's the notion of cloud and storing information in the cloud. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that concept. I'm not sure how many of you do that. Certainly if you did collaboration documents where you had something, where you did a shared document, you had a Google document, and you explored, or everybody in perhaps a group project contributed to a particular article. I know that's been very common with my son. I have a high schooler, and frequently in groups, you know, they all work and they contribute to a particular project on Google Docs, and that information is stored in the cloud. Microsoft was the first to really push this, and they have their Microsoft Office 365. Google has been trying to do it. Microsoft got a little bit of an edge on that, but that seems to be a sort of a new trend that they're exploring. Another thing that I want to talk about is the notion of, whoops, you guys can all see how bad I can type. Teen use of media. And later on in the learning unit, you're going to read an article that was just released by the Pew Research Institution, which is a very credible source. And this particular study explored teenagers and their use of social media sites. And the document is very long. It's 107 pages. That's really long. I haven't even read it all. But I want you to, in particular, to focus on the summary, because the summary will highlight the key themes, and then from there you can click on the themes that interest you, and actually if you wanted to read that section of the paper that you could. It's not all bad, but it does indicate that today's youth has been growing significantly in their use of online information. In 2010, the Kaiser Foundation discovered that youth, and they defined youth as age 8 to 18, were basically incorporating 11.5 hours worth of media usage in their life, and typically packed into about 7 hours. So what they did is they explored the notion of convergence and how they were doing a variety of different things at the same time, and came up with that numbers. But however, whether you go with the minimum 7 hours to the 11.5, that's a lot of time. And this particular article that you'll look at explores that even more. What's ironic is that as I'm recording this, my youngest, who is 13, has a friend over and they're spending the night. When I just went to check on them a few minutes ago, they were both in the bedroom, both of them on their iPods, and both of them incorporating each other in a chat through the information that they were doing on their social media sites, which is, just ironic, because you go into the room and they're both sitting, one's on the chair and the other's laying on the bed, and it's dead silence in the room, but they are socializing, which is pretty ironic given the fact that I'm recording this lecture right now. But anyways, I want you to explore that and tell me what you think. The next thing that I want to look at are the 4 myths about search engines. And I can't talk and type at the same time. It's a bit of a problem. Okay, so the first is the notion of impartiality. The idea that a social search engine, whether it's Yahoo or Dogpile or the old AOL search, that they are impartial, and they're certainly not. They certainly have their biases, if you will, and they lean toward one particular aspect or another for a variety of different things. Some interesting, you have to do some research on that. The other, along with that, is that if you use a variety of different search engines, you'll get a wider spread or choice of resources drawn to you. I very much bought into this one, and for years used Dogpile as my search engine, because Dogpile was said to touch on a variety of different search engines and then combine the results from all these different ones into one. And I was given that. So I was given a nice conglomeration, the results of a variety of search engines. But in reality, many of the search engines look at the same data. Not all of them, but many of them. The idea that it searches the entire web, that has been sort of polled and searched, and so you're getting the results of the whole shebang, and that's not true. Oftentimes it's a mere microcosm that is explored, and you get the results from that. And lastly, that it is your only option as a consumer to search. And again, there are other alternatives, and some of those are listed in the textbook, so definitely would encourage you to explore that. Under the web goes social. I think the only thing I want to explore here is this idea of the MMOR. Is there an S? I can't remember. There we go. The massively multiplayer online role-playing games. And the most popular one that I'm familiar with is, of course, WoW, World of Warcraft. There are many places in Asia where this is huge. In Korea, they have very large, very crowded online gaming cafes where people will go and spend hours, and they're online in their particular role-playing game. So that's just a different aspect of that. Convergence and mobile media. Certainly the telephone, the smartphone has been one of the greatest propellers of this notion of convergence and the results of that. In terms of issues, what I want to focus on here is the idea of security. And in the learning unit, you are watching a TED Talk that was presented by the president of Firefox, of Mozilla, and he talks about online tracking. Now, there's an element, an aspect of data mining, the fact that they track your behavior, that they monitor what you're interested, what advertisements you might pause to look at, where your mouse is at. They do all that in order to give to you an internet that is tailored specifically towards you. For example, if you are somewhat of a fashionista and you happen to click on a shoe sale, then the next couple ads are along that same line. And so it's basically tailored to what it is determining your particular interests are, your particular hobbies. So there's a lot of that's very convenient, and there's a bit of that that's a bit sinister, that you are tracked. And in terms of your security, some of the things to consider is, well, first of all, are you okay with that? Is this a cost that you're comfortable paying in terms of having an internet that is tailored to you, is personalized to you? Or is it disconcerting? Does it bother you? Is it a little bit like internet stalking? And if you don't like it, are you going to do anything about it? And there are many ways to do that. You can certainly go through an anonymizer, which is basically a location you go to online and you log in there, and then from that website you then use that to browse and go elsewhere. And so-called, your paths cannot be tracked. So it basically masks your IP address and makes you somewhat invisible, at least significantly more difficult to track. However, it's not absolute, and not all Animizer sites are equal. There's one site called Animouse. There's another that's an Animizer. There's a couple of different anonymizer sites that are out there that people will use. Very interesting. It's actually been very useful in places like China, where the government obviously can get very involved in your online behavior, and some people have managed to stay out of prison because they've done their work through an anonymizer. Definitely recommend that you go to some of the links I give you on tips, ways to protect your online privacy. Particularly go to the website that is the CDT, the Center for Democracy and Technology. There are 14 tips that they give you how to sort of protect yourself online. And don't ever think that you're too busy to do this or too much above it. I think it's something that's imperative and something that we all need to do and really to take a chance to explore. And I think that's it in terms of what I want to talk about in Chapter 2. So I will see you online.